In a time when the earth was swallowed by endless waters, when skies wept storms that drowned mountains and valleys alike, the world as it was known perished beneath the flood. Yet from the depths of that watery grave, a new hope was born, a covenant sealed by the divine and carried forth by a family chosen to rebuild the shattered world. This is the story of the sons of the flood, the heirs of Noah's legacy, each blessed with a sacred gift, each destined to face a land reborn, yet fraught with perils unseen. In a world where shadows creep through the ruins of forgotten empires, where creatures born from darkness threaten the fragile dawn of humanity, these sons must rise. Their journey is one of courage, sacrifice, and the relentless pursuit of light amid encroaching darkness. They walk paths carved by ancient prophecies and divine wills, their every step echoing with the weight of a promise, to guard the legacy of the flood and forge a new dawn from the ashes of the old. Prepare to enter a world where faith battles shadow, where every whisper of wind carries the echo of ancient powers, and where the fate of all creation hangs by a fragile thread. This is not just a tale of survival. It is an epic of redemption, a saga of hope, and a journey into the heart of legend. Welcome, traveler, to the Sons of the Flood, Noah's legacy. Your story begins now. Chapter 1. The Ashes of the Old World. When the waters withdrew, the earth lay bare, wounded and silent. Mountains still wept mist from their snow-capped wounds. Forests, once mighty, were stripped of their glory. Cities, built with pride and arrogance, slept beneath layers of mud and ruin. The old world was gone, swallowed by the fury of the flood, judged by the breath of the Almighty. Above the wreckage of what once was, a single vessel rested atop Mount Ararat. Its timbers, weathered by divine fury and the relentlessness of the sea, groaned no more. From it stepped the last of mankind, Noah, righteous and aged, and his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, each bearing the weight of a world to rebuild. They stood upon the mountain like seeds waiting to fall into fertile soil. The sky, once a place of storm and judgment, now shimmered with unfamiliar peace. A covenant arched above them, a bow of colors never before seen. And in Noah's heart, hope stirred. But peace would not last long. Far below, in valleys shrouded in mist and time, the remnants of ancient things stirred. Titans from the forgotten age of men, beasts forged in the twilight before the flood, whispered in the shadows. Though their kingdoms had drowned, their hunger remained, and they smelled mankind once more. Each of Noah's sons was chosen, not merely to bear children, but to carry a legacy. When the world was still young, and Eden not yet forgotten, the Lord had whispered secret names into the soil. From those names he shaped gifts, gifts of flame, of wisdom, and of life. Now, these gifts were bound to Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Shem, firstborn and solemn, bore the gift of flame. In him burned the spirit of prophets, the fire that could purify, judge, or illuminate. His eyes saw beyond the visible, into truths hidden like stars at noon. Ham, restless and wild, carried the gift of earth. To him was given strength, the power to shape stone, command beasts, and speak with the bones of the land. But such a gift, untamed, could either build empires or bury them. And Japheth, the dreamer, bore the gift of wind. Gentle yet mighty, his voice could stir the hearts of men, his visions soar beyond the borders of the world. He was a bridge between people, a singer of unity in the coming storm. Together, they stepped into a world born of death. Noah called them to the altar he built from the stones of Ararat. He placed his hands upon their heads and wept, not for the world that was lost, but for the world yet to come. For he had seen visions in the night, dreams of second fall, of powers ancient and dark, crawling from the edges of the earth. My sons, he said, you are the root of nations. But the soil you plant in is cursed, and serpents dwell beneath it. Your children will build cities, raise temples, and sail to the ends of the world. But if you forget the one who brought you through the waters, the shadows will rise again. Then Noah raised his staff, a relic from before the flood, carved with signs older than Babel, and drove it into the earth. From this mountain, he declared, the covenant shall flow. And the mountain answered. The ground trembled with the breath of something ancient. The wind fell silent. A pulse echoed through the stones. It was the first heartbeat of the new world. But not all hearts beat for light. In a ruined valley far to the east, a tower stirred beneath the mud. Its black stones, once crowned with fire, now pulsed with a forgotten rhythm. The watchers, beings cast down in the age of Enoch, felt the tremor. They opened eyes that had slumbered through the deluge. Eyes filled with cold, cunning wrath. The sons have returned, they hissed. And so began the second great journey of mankind. Not one of survival, but of purpose. The age of mere endurance was over. Now, the war for the soul of the new world had begun. That night, under a sky still raw with stars, Shem stood watch while the others slept. He felt the fire in his chest, a presence he hadn't asked for, but one that answered when he called. His hand hovered over a stone, and with a thought, it glowed faintly, as if remembering light. He had seen things during the voyage, visions granted in dreams or born from madness. A city of gold crumbling into the sea. A serpent with 7 tongues whispering through broken temples. A crown of iron worn by a faceless king. He did not yet understand, but he knew this: they were not alone. At the base of the mountain, the brothers made their camp. Days passed. They hunted, built, and burned offerings. The earth began to open to them, slow and cautious, like a beast sniffing unfamiliar scent. Trees sprouted again. Animals returned in cautious pairs. But so did the ruins. Ham was the first to find them. While exploring the southern slopes, he discovered a shattered ziggurat, half buried beneath vines and ash. The stones were ancient, older than the flood, carved with spirals and symbols that pulsed faintly when touched. In the center lay a chamber, cold and still, where a black orb floated above a broken altar. He reached for it. The moment his fingers brushed the surface, the ground screamed. Images tore through his mind. Visions of giants walking in fire, of men kneeling to stars, of a throne built from the skulls of kings. He recoiled, falling backwards, gasping. The orb shattered, and a whisper followed him out of the ruins. You were never meant to rise. When he returned to the camp, Him said nothing, but the mark on his palm glowed faintly in the moonlight. Japheth, meanwhile, wandered westward, drawn by dreams and voices in the wind. He came to a glade untouched by flood or flame. There the trees sang, a music like waterfalls and thunder woven together. In the heart of the glade stood a woman cloaked in feathers and mist. "You walk with the wind," she said, though her lips did not move. "But even wind can be chained." "Who are you?" Japheth asked. "A guardian of what once was," she replied. "The song of the world lingers here, but few can hear it." She pressed a branch into his hand. It bloomed with silver leaves. "When the towers rise again, this will show you the truth hidden in lies. But beware, child of Noah. The sons of a serpent are not yet dead. They sleep beneath your feet." Then she vanished, leaving only the wind and the weight of her warning. By the 7th day, Noah gathered his sons again. "There are places in this world where the flood did not cleanse," he said. "Ruins where the Nephilim once ruled. Their bones may lie in silence, but their spirits do not sleep." He looked at each son in turn. "You have been given gifts not for glory, but for war. A war not of swords, but of souls. Light against corruption. Truth against power. Faith against fear." He pointed to the horizon, where 3 roads branched from the base of the mountain. East into the ruins, west into the forests, and south into the deserts. "Each of you must go," he said. "Take what the Lord has given. Seek the roots of this world's darkness. And remember, the flood may have ended the first fall, but a second will come, one born not of water, but of will." Shem, Ham, and Japheth looked to the paths before them. The mountain behind was safe. The world ahead was not. But destiny is never forged in safety. And so, Beneath the eyes of heaven, the sons of Noah set forth, each to a different corner of the world, each bearing a spark of the divine, and each walking unknowingly into the shadows of forgotten empires. The flood had washed the earth clean, but the darkness had not drowned. Chapter 2. The Valley of Bones. Shem traveled east, following the sun into a land veiled in ash and silence. The trees here were twisted, their branches clawing at the sky as though mourning something long lost. No bird sang, no breeze stirred. The land had not healed. For days, Shem walked alone, guided by the fire in his heart. Each night he dreamt of towers wrapped in shadow and cities sinking beneath waves of black. In the dreams, voices called to him, not with words, but with memories, of a time before the flood, of the watchers and their cursed offspring. On the seventh day, he reached a great valley. Its cliffs rose like jagged teeth, and the earth below was pale and dry. Bones, human and not, lay scattered across the ground, bleached by the sun. They whispered when the wind passed, as if retelling ancient wars. Shem descended. In the heart of the valley stood a single obelisk, half buried in dust. Symbols marked its surface, glowing faintly beneath his gaze. He reached out. The fire within him stirred, resonating with the stone. And then the visions came. A city of gold, ruled by giants. Men enslaved by gods who fell from the heavens. Children born of shadow and fire, monstrous and proud. Shem fell to his knees, overwhelmed. The obelisk spoke without voice. You carry the flame, but flame alone cannot cleanse what festers in the roots. Then silence. He rose, shaken but resolute. Around him, the bones began to shift. From the dust, shapes emerged, tattered forms of those who once served the Nephilim. They did not walk, but hovered, bound by will alone. Their eyes burned with hollow hunger. Shem summoned the fire. It blazed from his hands, not wild but focused, a righteous flame, the kind that judges. He spoke a single word, one that came not from him, but through him. Begone. The spirits screamed as the fire consumed them, their forms unraveling into smoke. When it was done, the valley fell silent once more. Shem turned to the obelisk. It had cracked down the middle. From within spilled a black mist that slithered across the ground and vanished into the rocks. Not all was destroyed. Some evil still moved beneath the earth. As he climbed out of the valley, he looked once more upon the bones. He did not weep. He did not fear. But a question remained, carved into his thoughts like fire into stone. If the dead can return, what of the giants who ruled them? And somewhere beyond the mountains, something ancient awoke. Eyes opened in the deep, and a name long forgotten was spoken once more. Azazel. Chapter 3. The Whispering Stones. Ham journeyed south into the vast deserts where the sun scorched the earth with a relentless fury. The ground beneath his feet cracked like ancient parchment, barren and unforgiving. The wind howled like a restless spirit, carrying with it the scent of long-forgotten battles and lost empires swallowed by time. Here, the gift of earth pulsed strongest within him, the deep power to command stone, soil, and bone. The desert stretched endlessly, a graveyard of silence and ruins. Broken columns lay scattered like forgotten memories. Half-buried temples crumbled beneath endless sand, and statues, once proud and mighty, now bowed low to the weight of centuries. Ham knelt beside a fractured pillar, fingertips tracing the worn carvings that told stories older than the flood. As his hand pressed the stone, a subtle vibration echoed through him, awakening the dormant power he bore. The air shifted suddenly. The ground beneath his knees trembled with an ancient pulse, a slow, heavy beat that whispered secrets long buried. From beneath the sand, shapes began to rise, slowly, deliberately. A figure emerged, tall and twisted, cloaked in dust and shadows, its eyes glowing with a cruel, unforgiving light. It moved not with haste, but with the certainty of one who had waited through centuries of silence. You trespass where you were never meant to walk, son of Noah. It hissed, its voice like grinding rocks scraping together. The earth remembers. The earth judges. Ham rose, his gaze steady, fists clenched tight. Around him, the desert responded. Stones and fragments of shattered ruins began to stir, lifting from the sand as if answering a silent call. His gift awakened, thrumming through his veins, the strength of mountains and valleys, of shifting plates and cracked earth. He could feel the pulse of the land, ancient and wild, bending to his will. "Then judge me," Ham replied, his voice low but unyielding. "I'm the child of the earth, as much as you." The shadowy figure lunged, a whirlwind of dust and jagged stone. But the earth itself rose to Ham's defense. Spires of rock erupted from the sand, forming a cage that trapped the dark being in place. It snarled, claws scraping stone, but the desert held firm. For a moment, all was still, save for the wind's whispering voice, faint yet clear, carried on the scorching breeze. "Beware," it warned. "The sons of the flood awaken powers that will not rest until they reclaim what was lost." Ham's eyes narrowed as he looked toward the horizon, where the sun dipped low, spilling molten gold across the barren land. This was no longer the simple desert he had once imagined. It was a battlefield between the living and the forgotten shadows that sought to consume all life. He was no longer just a boy playing in the dust. He was a guardian of a world reborn, standing between creation and destruction, holding the weight of the earth's legacy in his hands. The shadowed figure struggled, its voice dripping with ancient malice. "You think your strength can bind me? I am the fury beneath the mountain, the rage of the deep. The earth will swallow all who deny its power." Hem tightened his grip on the sand, willing it to rise once more. The cage grew taller, stronger, sealing the creature in its rocky prison. "But you forget," Ham said, his voice rising with the power of the earth itself. "The land gives and takes. It can build empires and bury them alike. And I am its child, born to protect, to hold the balance." As the sun finally set behind the dunes, Hem felt the desert quiet around him. The shadowed figure was trapped, for now, but its hunger and fury remained. He knew the fight had only just begun. The desert night wrapped around him like a cloak, filled with the whispers of stones and the weight of a promise. The earth would remember, and so would he. Chapter 4. The Song of the Wind. Japheth followed the call of the wind westward, where the forest stretched vast and ancient, whispering secrets older than time itself. The air was crisp and alive, tinged with the scent of pine, wildflowers, and a faint trace of rain long past. His gift, the gift of wind, thrummed beneath his skin, light and boundless, a breath ready to carry stories across the world's forgotten corners. The forest was a living tapestry of shadows and light, where towering trees stretched their limbs toward the heavens like silent sentinels guarding untold mysteries. Birds sang from high branches, their melodies weaving through the rustling leaves. Streams sparkled as they danced over smooth stones, their gentle murmurs a lullaby to the weary traveler. Japheth moved through this realm with a sense of belonging, yet he was keenly aware of eyes watching him from the shadows, hidden, waiting, patient. The wind itself seemed to hold its breath, as if sensing a threat lurking just beyond the veil of sunlight and leaves. On the fourth day, he came upon a glade unlike any other. The trees here were taller, their trunks silvered and their leaves shimmering with an ethereal glow. The very air vibrated with a melody only the wind could carry, a song of life, renewal, and warning. In the center of the glade stood a woman cloaked in feathers and mist, her eyes deep pools that mirrored the endless sky. "You carry the breath of a new world," she said softly, her voice drifting on the breeze, yet clear as if spoken beside him. But even the wind can be chained. Japheth stepped closer, drawn by her presence and the weight of her words. The woman reached out and pressed a slender branch into his palm. Instantly, it bloomed with silver leaves that shimmered with a light born from some ancient and hidden place. "This will guide you when darkness clouds your path," she whispered. The song of the world lingers here, but not all can hear it. Beware the silence that follows the storm. Japheth nodded, feeling the warmth of the gift pulse through his veins like a living thing. The woman's form began to dissolve into mist, carried away by a sudden gust of wind that swept through the glade. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the air thick with anticipation. Then, from the far edges of the trees, a low growl rolled through the underbrush. Shadows moved with deliberate intent, their eyes glowing faintly like embers burning in the dark. Japheth raised his hands, calling forth a gust of wind that swept through the clearing, scattering leaves and sending a whispered warning. He knew the peace of this place was fragile, a delicate balance between light and shadow. The shadows were coming, creatures born from the old darkness that had survived the flood's cleansing waters, hungry for the warmth of life and the breath of the world. The wind carried voices, echoes of ancient battles and lost promises. Japheth closed his eyes, listening to the song beneath the song, the deeper melody that told of fate and fire, of choices yet to be made. Suddenly, the trees themselves seemed to lean closer, their branches weaving together as if to shield the glade from what approached. The silver leaves in Japheth's hand glowed brighter, humming with a power that spoke of hope and resistance. The growls grew louder, the shadows gathering at the edge like a storm waiting to break. Japheth took a deep breath, feeling the wind swirl around him, lifting his cloak and ruffling his hair. He was no longer just a boy chasing the wind. He was a bearer of its song, a guardian entrusted with the breath of the new world. As the first shadows stepped into the light of the glade, Japheth stood firm, ready to face the coming storm. The song of the wind was his shield, and with it, he would carry the hope of the earth itself. Chapter 5. Flames of the Forgotten. Japheth's path led him deeper into the scorched lands, a vast wasteland where the earth was cracked and dry, and the sky shimmered with waves of heat. The sun hung heavy, an unrelenting orb that burned the horizon, turning the land into a furnace. Here, his gift, the power of fire, awoke within him with fierce intensity, a roaring flame refusing to be tamed or hidden. The scorched plains stretched endlessly, littered with the bleached bones of forgotten creatures and the crumbled remnants of ancient cities swallowed by flame and time. The air carried the acrid scent of smoke and sulfur, mingling with the dry, hot winds that whispered through jagged rocks and blackened earth. This was a place both alive and dead, a crucible where destruction had forged something new. Japheth walked steadily, each step sending small puffs of dust into the air. The fire within him stirred, crackling like embers in a hearth, humming with power and promise. It spoke in a language older than words, heat, light, fury, and rebirth all tangled in one fierce voice. This fire was a force of creation and devastation, and Japheth knew he must master both to survive what lay ahead. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows that stretched like claws across the land, Japheth reached a cavern mouth veiled by curling smoke and shimmering heat. The entrance yawned wide, jagged edges glowing faintly red, as though the earth itself breathed with a fiery pulse beneath the surface. He stepped inside, feeling the warmth rise like a living thing. The cavern walls shimmered with molten veins, rivers of glowing lava flowing beneath layers of cooled obsidian. The air hummed with ancient energy, thick and heavy, alive with the memory of countless fires that had burned before. From the depths, a figure emerged, tall and imposing, wreathed in flames that flickered without burning, eyes glowing like coals burning deep within the earth. The fire spirit's presence was overwhelming, both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Its voice was a roar and a whisper, a fierce crackle that echoed in Japheth's mind. You carry the spark of the new world, the spirit intoned. Fire is a double-edged blade, creator and destroyer, light and shadow. To wield it is to walk the line between life and death, between hope and ruin. Japheth met the spirit's gaze, feeling the fire's heat pulse through his veins, igniting his courage. "I'm not a mere bearer of flame," he declared. "I am its master and guardian. I will protect this new world from the darkness that seeks to consume it." The spirit nodded slowly, flames dancing brighter around it. "Then let your fire burn with purpose. Let cleanse and forge anew. But remember, fire does not forget. It carries the sins of the past in every spark, and its fury is a tempest that can consume even its master." Japheth raised his hands, and flames erupted, swirling around him in a fierce, glowing dance. The cavern trembled as ancient fire awoke once more, echoing with a primal roar that shook the very stones. Outside, the scorched plains lay quiet beneath the fading sun, but inside Japheth, the fire burned brighter than ever, a beacon of fierce hope and unyielding strength against the gathering shadows. He knew the path ahead would be perilous, but with fire as his ally, he was ready to face whatever darkness awaited. Chapter 6: The Silent Watchers. As the sun dipped low behind jagged peaks, Shem made his way deeper into the northern wilds, where ancient forests whispered secrets of a world forgotten and mountains loomed like silent sentinels guarding hidden truths. His gift, the power of sight, burned quietly within him, a flame behind his eyes that pierced through veils of shadow and time, revealing the unseen threads that wove fate itself. The air grew cooler as he ascended, thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. Shadows lengthened, stretching across moss-covered stones and twisted roots that clawed at the forest floor. The ruins of an ancient city appeared before him, a place swallowed by time and the flood's merciless hand. Broken columns and shattered walls jutted from the ground like skeletons reaching toward a forgotten sky. Shem paused, feeling the weight of unseen eyes upon him. From the dimming light emerged figures cloaked in shadow, the Silent Watchers. Tall and slender, they moved without sound, their glowing eyes reflecting the twilight like distant stars. Their presence was both haunting and solemn, a reminder that the past still lingered, watching and waiting. "You carry the sight," one whispered, voice as cold and sharp as winter's breath. "A gift and a curse, for seeing is not always knowing. The threads you unravel may bind you tighter than chains." Shem met their gaze steadily, the power within him awakening. "I seek to protect the new world, to honor my father's legacy and guard the fragile dawn." The Watcher's eyes flickered like dying embers. The old powers stir. They remember what was lost and hunger for what must never return. "Tread carefully, bearer of sight." A chill ran down Shem's spine as the Watchers faded into the gathering night, their warning lingering in the air like a ghost sigh. Shem knew the path ahead was fraught with unseen dangers, forces old as the flood itself, waiting to reclaim the world in shadows and ruin. Drawing strength from his gift, Shem raised his eyes to the stars emerging over the mountain peaks. The threads of fate wove a silent tapestry around him, fragile yet unbreakable. He was now a sentinel between light and darkness, watching over a world reborn and standing guard against the encroaching night. In the quiet that followed, Shem whispered a vow to the wind. He would see all that must be seen, face all that must be faced, and protect the legacy of the flood survivors, no matter the cost. Chapter 7: The Hidden Flame. Shem's journey from the northern mountains led him southward, toward the dense jungles where sunlight fought its way through thick canopies and the air was heavy with the scent of earth and life. The jungle pulsed with secrets, ancient and alive, whispers carried on humid breezes and rustling leaves. Here, the gift of fire that once roared within Japheth simmered in a different form, subtle and concealed. Shem's own power of sight drew him onward, sensing a spark hidden deep beneath the vibrant wilderness. The trees towered like colossal guardians, their roots weaving an endless labyrinth beneath the fertile soil. Vines hung like serpents from branch to branch, and unseen creatures stirred in the shadows. The jungle was both alive and watching, a place where light and darkness fought for dominion. Shem moved cautiously, senses alert to every sound, every movement. His eyes pierced through the dappled shadows, glimpsing more than mere shapes, flickers of spirit, echoes of the past, and threads of a secret flame buried beneath the earth. He came upon a clearing where the ground was scorched black, as if fire had swept through recently. Yet there were no flames, only the faint glow of embers hidden beneath the ash. In the center, a stone altar stood cracked and weathered, inscribed with symbols that pulsed faintly with an ancient power. Kneeling beside the altar, Shem placed his hand on the cold stone. The moment his fingers touched the surface, a warmth spread through him, gentle but insistent, a hidden flame waiting to be awakened. The symbols flared bright, and visions flooded his mind. A time before the flood, when fire was worshipped as a divine force, a flame that gave life but demanded respect and sacrifice. Suddenly the air shifted. From a jungle's depths emerged a figure cloaked in leaves and ash, eyes burning with fierce determination. She spoke with a voice that echoed like the crackle of fire. "You seek the hidden flame. Few have dared. Few have lived." Shem stood, meeting her gaze. "I carry the sight, and with it comes the burden to protect. The new world must not fall into darkness again." The woman nodded. "Then you must learn the flame's true nature. Fire is not just destruction, it is transformation. It can purge the old and kindle the new, but it demands balance, or it consumes all." Together, they traced the ancient symbols, and Shem felt the flames stir deeper within him. The jungle around them seemed to hold its breath, the eternal dance of light and shadow playing out in silent harmony. The hidden flame was no mere gift, it was a test, a challenge to harness power without losing oneself. Shem knew his path was entwined with this secret fire, that to protect the legacy of Noah's children, he would need to master both sight and flame, to walk between worlds of light and shadow. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Shem vowed to honor the flame's ancient wisdom and guard the fragile dawn against the creeping dark. Chapter 8. Shadows of the Forgotten. As the twilight deepened, Shem ventured beyond the jungle's edge, into a realm where light barely dared to tread. This was the borderland, the fragile threshold between the world of the living and the shadowed, domains whispered about in ancient tales. Here, the air was thick with silence, heavy as if the land itself held its breath. Vines clawed at crumbled stone, and twisted roots snaked through broken archways, remnants of a civilization buried in the dust of forgotten time. The ruins before Shem stretched wide and broken, monuments to a world that had once flourished before the flood swallowed all. Moss-covered shattered statues, and glyphs long eroded told stories of gods who ruled with iron wills and men who reached for power beyond their grasp. The stones pulsed faintly with old magic, a lingering echo of glory and ruin intertwined. Shem's sight burned bright, slicing through the dense shadows like a blade of light. His eyes saw what others could not. The restless spirits trapped between worlds, the echoes of forgotten voices, and the creeping shadows that moved with purpose and hunger. The air seemed to pulse with their silent whispers, warnings carried on the cold breeze. Suddenly, shapes emerged from the darkness. Twisted and smoky, they flickered like shadows caught between fire and night. Beings born of corruption and despair, remnants of a forgotten age that had been consumed by its own darkness. These were the forgotten, cursed souls and twisted creatures bound to the ruins, hungry for light and life they could no longer claim. Shem's breath steadied as he summoned the gift within. Threads of fate wove around him like a shield, a shimmering cloak of light and power. He reached into the unseen, pulling shards of brightness from the shadows themselves, igniting a fierce glow that pushed back the encroaching dark. The battle that followed was silent yet fierce, a dance of light and shadow where every movement carried the weight of survival. The forgotten snarled and lunged, their smoky forms shifting and striking, but Shem stood unyielding. His eyes burned with determination as he cast light into every corner. chasing the shadows back into their forsaken corners. "You will not claim this world." Shem's voice rang out, steady and resolute. "The legacy of my father, the survivors of the flood, will endure. Darkness will not consume the dawn." As the first stars pierced the night sky above, Shem felt the burden of his destiny settle deeper within his bones. The past was a heavy chain, one woven with sorrow and sacrifice, but it also held the key to the future. To protect this fragile new world, he would have to face the shadows both outside and within himself. Gathering the fading light, Shem prepared to face whatever darkness awaited beyond the ruins. The path was perilous, the enemies many, but so too was the fire burning within him, a fierce flame of hope that refused to be extinguished. Chapter 9. The Echoes of the Deep. The morning mist clung stubbornly to the riverbanks as Shem descended from the ruins, the distant roar of rushing water guiding his steps. Beyond the dense forests and shattered stones lay the great river, winding like a silver serpent through the land, its depths hiding secrets older than memory. It was said that beneath its surface slept echoes of a world drowned and dreams that refused to die. Shem's sight sharpened, sensing the pulse of the river, an ancient rhythm that whispered of forgotten depths and unseen dangers. His footsteps were light as he approached the water's edge, where the air shimmered with cool moisture and the scent of wet stone filled his nostrils. Here, the power of the flood lingered strongest, a reminder of the waters that had cleansed the earth and carried humanity into a new dawn. The river was more than a body of water. It was a boundary between worlds, a threshold to mysteries hidden beneath the shimmering surface. Shem knelt beside the flowing current, his gaze piercing the ripples that danced like silver flames. Visions swirled before him, ghostly shapes drifting in shadowy depths, lost souls seeking passage, and ancient creatures guarding the river's secrets. A sudden ripple disturbed the calm, and from the depths rose a figure cloaked in water and mist, eyes glowing like deep-sea gems. Her voice was like the murmur of currents, both soothing and ominous. "You tread upon sacred waters, bearer of sight. The river remembers the past and guards the future." Shem met her gaze steadily. "I seek only to protect what remains, to honor the legacy born from the flood sacrifice." The water spirit nodded slowly. "To guard the new world, you must understand the depths, both within and without. The river flows with memory and power. It carries the weight of what was lost and the hope of what might be." She reached out, and the river's surface rippled, revealing visions of old, the world before the flood, cities swallowed by water, and the faces of those who had vanished beneath the waves. Shem saw the pain and pride of a people undone by their own hubris, a warning etched in liquid time. "Beware the currents that run beneath the surface," the spirit warned. "Darkness gathers there, hungry for light and life. Only those who can see beyond the veil will survive the coming storms." Shem felt the truth in her words settle deep within his bones. The river song was a melody of power and peril, a reminder that to protect the fragile dawn, he would need to embrace both light and shadow, memory and hope. As the sun climbed higher, breaking through the morning mist, Shem rose with renewed purpose. The legacy of the flood was not just survival, but wisdom, a calling to navigate the currents of fate with courage and care. With the river's ancient song echoing in his heart, Shem set forth toward the unknown, ready to face the shadows lurking in the depths and the light waiting beyond the horizon. Chapter 10. The Mark of the Covenant. The endless plains stretched before Shem like a vast ocean of waving grasses, golden and wild beneath the pale morning sun. Here, where the horizons seemed to vanish into the sky, the air was thick with the weight of promise and peril. The land bore the scars of the flood and the silent echo of a divine covenant, an unbroken promise etched into the very soil, binding the earth and the heavens. Shem's steps carried him to a circle of towering stones, worn smooth by centuries, yet standing proud, like ancient sentinels guarding a sacred truth. Each monolith was carved with symbols older than memory, glyphs and sigils that pulsed faintly with a light not of this world. This was a place of power, a sanctuary where the pact between God and man was forever sealed. His gift of sight flared as he approached, revealing hidden runes glowing beneath the surface of the stones, threads of divine energy woven into the earth itself. He reached out, fingertips brushing the cold rock, and a wave of warmth spread through him, as if the very spirit of the covenant had come alive within his veins. A voice echoed across the plains, deep and resonant, as if carried by the wind itself. Bearer of the legacy, the covenant is not merely a promise. It is a charge, a sacred trust to guard the new world from the shadows that seek to undo it. Shem's gaze hardened. I carry this charge with my life. The dawn of humanity will not be extinguished. From the edges of the stone circle, shadows coalesced, dark figures draped in malice and greed, remnants of those who rejected the light of renewal. Their eyes gleamed with hunger for power and destruction, aiming to shatter the fragile peace born from the flood sacrifice. Without hesitation, Shem summoned the flames kindled within him, weaving them with the threads of his sight into a radiant shield that blazed with divine fire. Light exploded outward, casting the dark away like smoke before the wind. The air crackled with energy as the battle raged, silent but fierce, a clash of ancient powers beneath the endless sky. When the last shadow dissolved into the dawn, Shem knelt, placing his hand on the earth once more. The covenant's light pulsed beneath his touch, steady and unyielding, a living testament to hope, sacrifice, and the enduring bond between humanity and the divine. He rose, eyes fixed on the horizon where the sun climbed higher, painting the world anew. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with dangers unseen, but Shem's heart was unwavering. For the legacy of Noah, for the children of the flood, he would stand as guardian and beacon, a keeper of light in the gathering dark. Chapter 11. The Whispering Winds. The wind was a restless spirit as Shem moved into the rolling hills beyond the stone circle, carrying with it the scent of distant storms and the faint echoes of voices long past. These hills were ancient, carved by time and whispered legends, a place where the air itself seemed alive with secrets waiting to be uncovered. The grass bent and swayed, murmuring stories only the wind could remember. Shem's sight sharpened, attuned to the faintest stirrings in the breeze. The gift had never been mere vision. It was a communion with the world's hidden truths. Through it, he sensed the winds carried more than air. They carried the memories of the earth, whispers of forgotten deeds, and the songs of those who had walked before him. As he climbed higher, the sky darkened, not with storm but with a gathering power. Clouds twisted in restless spirals, a tempest born not of nature, but of ancient will. The air crackled with electricity, charged with the raw energy of the elements. Shem knew this was no ordinary storm. This was the breath of the world itself, warning or perhaps beckoning. Suddenly, from the swirling clouds emerged a figure cloaked in swirling gusts, eyes like lightning flashing with fierce intelligence. She was the wind whisperer, a guardian of the skies and secrets, her voice a melody carried on the breeze. Shem, bearer of the legacy, the winds speak of a coming trial. Shadows rise beyond the horizon, and the balance you guard teeters on the edge. Shem nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle deep within. I will face whatever comes, for the light of the new world must not falter. The wind whisperer extended her hand, and the winds danced around them, weaving visions in the air, visions of towering storms, fierce battles, and the fragile threads of hope woven through darkness. Shem saw the fragile alliance of nature and spirit, the delicate balance that must be preserved to ensure survival. The winds howled louder, carrying warnings and wisdom, and Shem raised his hands, drawing the power into himself. His gift pulsed, intertwining with the elemental force, binding sight and storm into a fierce harmony. As the tempest raged around him, Shem felt a surge of clarity, a vision of the road ahead filled with danger, but also with promise. The legacy of the flood was not just a tale of destruction, but of rebirth, and the winds whispered a sacred truth. Only through courage, wisdom, and unity could the new world endure. When the storm finally subsided, Shem stood alone on the hilltop, the sky clearing to reveal a horizon painted with the first light of dawn. The whispering winds had spoken, and their message was clear. His journey was far from over, and the trials ahead would demand all he had, and more. With resolve burning bright, Shem descended the hills, ready to face the coming shadows and protect the fragile dawn of humanity's new beginning. Chapter 12. The Fire Within. The evening settled over the land like a soft cloak, stars beginning to prick the velvet sky as Shem made his way toward the foothills where firelight flickered against ancient stones. The air was cool but tinged with the scent of smoke and charred wood, a reminder that even in this new world, danger could strike swiftly, leaving scars behind. Shem's heart beat steady as he approached the small encampment nestled among the rocks. Here, survivors from distant tribes had gathered, drawn by tales of a protector bearing the legacy of Noah. Their faces were marked by hardship and hope, eyes wide with reverence and the silent plea for guidance. At the center of the camp, an elder rose to greet Shem, a woman whose gaze held the wisdom of many seasons, her voice steady and warm. "Bearer of the gift, we have awaited you. The fires we kindle are not just for warmth, but for strength. Our people struggle to reclaim what was lost, but shadows lurk even in the brightest flames." Shem nodded, feeling the weight of their trust settle upon his shoulders. The legacy of the flood demands more than survival. It calls for courage and the fire within to face what lies ahead. That night, as the camp settled beneath a canopy of stars, Shem meditated by the fire, letting the flame's warmth kindle his inner power. His gift was not merely a sight beyond sight. It was a spark, a flame passed down through generations, born from the heart of sacrifice and renewal. Visions danced in the flickering light. Images of the flood's devastation, the ark's lonely voyage, and the dawn after the waters receded. But within those memories lay something more profound, a promise that fire, like faith, could never be fully extinguished. Suddenly, the air shifted. A chill ran through the camp as shadows moved at the edges of the firelight, dark figures drawn by the light's pull, seeking to snuff it out. The battle that erupted was fierce, a clash between flame and shadow beneath the stars. Shem stood firm, calling upon the fire within him. His hands ignited with a radiant glow, weaving flames into a shield that blazed with divine heat. Light and warmth surged outward, pushing back the encroaching darkness with every pulse. The survivors rallied, their courage rekindled by Shem's blaze. Together, they stood as one, a beacon of hope in the night. When the shadows finally fled, silence returned, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the steady breaths of those who had endured. Shem knew this was only a beginning. The fire within was a gift and a burden, a source of strength that must be guarded fiercely. For the darkness that stalked the new world was patient and cunning, always waiting for a moment to strike. As dawn's first light touched the horizon, Shem rose, the fire's warmth still glowing in his veins. The legacy of the flood was alive, burning bright within him, a flame of hope, courage, and unyielding spirit that would guide him through the shadows to come. Chapter 13. The Shadows Stir. The forest loomed ahead like a living fortress, ancient trees standing tall and dense, their branches woven tightly to blot out the sky. The air grew heavy with a damp, earthy scent, moss, decayed leaves, and a whisper of something darker, something unseen yet deeply felt. Shem stepped carefully, the soft crunch of leaves beneath his feet the only sound in the oppressive silence. His gift of sight stirred uneasily, sensing the hidden pulse of the forest's secrets. Here, the shadows were thick and restless, more than just absence of light. They carried whispers, fragments of forgotten curses, echoes of pain and loss from a time before the flood. The earth itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Shem's eyes pierced the gloom, tracing faint shapes moving just beyond the edge of vision. The darkness here was alive, swirling like smoke, shifting and coiling around the gnarled roots and fallen branches. It was not mere shadow, but a corruption, a twisted remnant of the old world's decay, still hungry for ruin. A sudden chill ran down Shem's spine as the air grew colder, the silence broken by a low murmur rising from the depths. Figures emerged from the blackness, wraith-like beings cloaked in shifting darkness, their eyes gleaming with malevolent hunger. They moved with silent grace, predators stalking their prey. From among them, a presence loomed, taller, darker, a shape that seemed to absorb the light itself. Its voice was a cold hiss that rippled through the trees. Bearer of the legacy, your light is but a flicker against the endless night. The old shadows remember. They will reclaim what was lost. Shem stood firm, drawing upon the fire within him. Flames kindled at his fingertips, weaving with his sight to forge a shield of blazing light. The air around him shimmered as the shadows recoiled, their forms twisting and writhing under the assault. A fierce battle ensued, silent but brutal, light clashing with shadow beneath the ancient canopy. Shem's flames burned bright, each burst of fire a strike against the darkness that sought to consume the new world. The forest echoed with the faint hiss of smoke and the crackle of divine fire. When the last shadow fled, leaving only the lingering scent of burnt earth, Shem lowered his hands, breath steady despite the ordeal. Yet even in victory, he felt the weight of the forest's warning. The corruption was patient, deep-rooted, and not easily driven away. He pressed forward, each step a solemn promise to protect the fragile dawn of humanity. For the legacy of the flood was not just survival. It was a battle against the shadows that would seek to snuff out the light. As dawn's first rays pierced the canopy, casting golden beams through the mist, Shem's resolve hardened. The shadows stirred, but so too did the light, and as long as he stood, the new world would endure. Chapter 14. The Forgotten City. Beyond the tangled forests and rolling hills, Shem found himself standing before the remnants of a city swallowed by time. Its crumbled walls rose like jagged teeth against the horizon, half buried in vines and shadows. This was a place lost to memory, whispered of in the oldest tales as a kingdom that defied the heavens and fell beneath its own pride. The air was thick with stillness and sorrow, as if the stones themselves remembered the cries of a fallen people. Shem's gift stirred, revealing faint traces of the past etched into the ruins, ghostly echoes of lives once vibrant, now swallowed by silence. He stepped cautiously among the broken columns and shattered streets, the weight of history pressing upon him. Here lay the proof of what could happen when mankind strayed from the path, when greed and ambition corrupted the heart. Shem's eyes caught movement, a flicker of shadow darting between the ruins. The darkness here was alive, a remnant of the ancient curse that had doomed this place. It whispered of power sought through forbidden means, of a fall that had torn the very fabric of the world. As he ventured deeper, the ruins began to pulse with a faint glow, ancient runes igniting beneath the moss and dust. The city's spirit, trapped between past and present, reached out in silent plea for redemption. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, an apparition of the city's last ruler, cloaked in faded glory but eyes burning with regret. You who carry the legacy, the ghost intoned, beware the pride that once shattered this kingdom. The darkness you fight is born from the same root. Guard your heart, for the battle is not only with shadows without, but with the shadows within. Shem nodded, understanding the deeper trial laid before him. The legacy was a test of not just strength, but of humility and wisdom. To protect the new world, he must confront not only the external darkness, but the temptations that lurked in every soul. As night fell, Shem lit a fire among the ruins, its light a fragile beacon against the encroaching darkness. He vowed to carry the lessons of this forgotten city forward, a warning carved in the stones of history, a guide for the future. The journey ahead would demand all he had, and the strength to face not just the shadows in the world, but those within himself. Chapter 15. The Legacy Renewed. The dawn broke over the valley with a soft glow, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose. Shem stood atop a ridge, overlooking the land he had traversed, the wild forests, the forgotten ruins, the vast plains kissed by the wind. Each step of his journey had etched a story into the earth, a testament to the fragile yet unyielding spirit of the new world. The air was alive with promise, yet heavy with the memories of trials endured. The legacy of the flood was no simple tale of survival, but a complex weave of light and shadow, faith and struggle, sacrifice and hope. Shem's heart bore the weight of this legacy, but within it burned a fire fierce and unwavering. He closed his eyes and reached deep within, drawing forth the gifts granted by the divine. Sight, fire, wisdom, and the strength of the covenant, all merged into a radiant force that pulsed through his veins. It was a light born not of power alone, but of love and purpose, forged in the crucible of loss and rebirth. From the valley below rose a chorus, voices of those who had come together, united by faith and resolve. They were the children of the flood, descendants of Noah's line, bearing their own gifts and burdens. Together, they formed a tapestry of hope, each thread vital to the whole. Shem's gaze swept over the gathering crowd, feeling the weight of responsibility, but also the warmth of belonging. The shadows that once threatened to consume the earth were not gone, but they had been held at bay by courage and unity. With a voice steady and clear, Shem spoke words that echoed across the valley. We are the heirs of a promise, the keepers of a covenant made by the divine. Our strength lies not just in our gifts, but in our hearts, in our will to stand against the darkness. The legacy of the flood is our guide, our shield, and our hope. As the sun climbed higher, its light spilling over the land, a new chapter began. The legacy was renewed, not as a burden, but as a beacon, a call to protect, to build, to dream. And in that moment, Shem knew that the journey was only the beginning. The new world awaited, shaped by those brave enough to carry the light through the shadows. Epilogue: the dawn of a new covenant. The sun dipped low beneath the horizon, casting long shadows over the land that had been both witness and battleground to the legacy of Noah's sons. The earth, still healing from the great flood, now breathed anew, whispering songs of rebirth carried on the evening breeze. Shem stood at the edge of a vast plain, the sky ablaze with twilight's fire. Behind him, the people gathered, children of the flood, faces illuminated by the last golden rays, their eyes reflecting hope, fear, and determination. They had endured trials that tested their very souls, faced shadows born of ancient darkness, and yet they stood united. The journey had been arduous, marked by sacrifice and discovery. Each son had carried a divine gift, a piece of the covenant that tethered humanity to the heavens. Through fire and storm, shadow and light, they had forged a fragile peace, a promise that the world would not again fall to ruin. Shem's gaze lifted to the stars that began to twinkle against the deepening sky, constellations ancient and eternal. He felt the weight of history and the promise of the future entwined within his chest. The legacy was more than a tale. It was a living bond, a sacred charge passed down through generations. In that quiet moment, the winds whispered softly, carrying voices from beyond, ancestors, spirits, the divine itself. They spoke not of endings, but beginnings. The world was not yet whole, but it was healing, growing, and the flame of humanity's spirit burned bright. Shem turned to the gathered souls, his voice steady yet filled with warmth. We are the heirs of the covenant, the guardians of the new dawn. Our path will be long, and shadows will rise again. But as long as we hold fast to the light within us, no darkness can overcome. A gentle hush fell over the crowd, hearts united by the shared promise. The land itself seemed to breathe in response, the night alive with possibility. As the stars shone brighter, Shem knew that the legacy was not merely his to bear. It belonged to all who would walk the earth with courage, faith, and hope. The dawn of a new covenant had come, and with it, the chance to build a world where light would forever triumph over shadow. And so, beneath the vast, eternal sky, the story of the flood's children lived on, an endless journey of faith, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between earth and heaven.